Just say your name.
Nicole Marisi.
Catherine Horn.
Sandra Farrell.
Mary Elizabeth Kofer.
Colleen Preheim. Laurie Mills.
Okay. So we'll move on to public comments. Any citizens wishing to address the Park Commission for items not on the agenda will be received at this time. We ask a 3-minute limit. And the Park Commission is restricted from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. So, Shanti?
Shanti Jayakumar, 3309 Park Hills Drive, resident of Rollingwood since 1984. The park as we see it today has been transformed from what it was like this, way back in 1982. That's all there was back there, okay, for new people. I couldn't, this was put together very hastily, but I just want to show let the pictures do the talking, so to say. But before I say that, I also want to tell you about Hazel Maxwell. She was really sort of our guardian angel who developed the park from what it was that you saw here to what it is today, but she passed away, untimely death. One time long ago, in 1993, when we had just bought the property on top, she said, there was talk about paving some part of the park, and she said, there are too many of us who have worked, saved, planted, and dreamed to get a park for Rollingwood. Maxwell said, it took us 3 years to build, level, get rock wall retainers, plant trees and grass, and water the park until sprinklers were brought in. Please, for goodness sake, leave our municipal park alone. That was the sentiment in 1993. But the reasons for that sentiment were very many, because they slaved, literally, they were always shovel ready and, wheelbarrow ready to do whatever it took to create the park we have today. So I'm going to pass this around. This is in 1995, soon after we had bought the park. And this is the residents of this community volunteering. And some of them were cardiologists, doesn't matter their profession. They were ready to sweat it out for this community. These are pictures of the park, and I'm going to let me finish showing you all. And this is in 1997 when the playscape was built. See the big boom there that had to be brought in to create the playscape down here. And then again, all volunteers, every single one of them, did the gravel, brought in everything that needed to be done to make the park what it was. And then this, I have to mention Catherine Horn here. She took it from here to what it is today. Not single-handedly, I know, but she had the backing of all these people, shovel ready again, to create that. And then, when we didn't have money, here's how it came in. Chevron, the women's club, and then from donations. And this is how we raised money for the park, okay? They were always there. I could go on, but I just want to have you all look at it, and that tells a story. I have a lady here. I have to introduce her because over the years, she put this book together. It has the history of the park. I took those pictures from here. And this will reside with the Park Commission. I just used it to take those pictures from here. And this is the history of the park, okay? And when they planted trees, mind you, they had a tree corps. That's an organization of volunteers that went out and watered, before the sprinklers were put in, every single tree that had been planted, okay? Just take a moment to think about how it used to be and be thankful for these pioneers who went before us. Two of these pioneers are here. Some of these pioneers are here among us who did a lot of work. I have pictures of Sandra from the Women's Club giving the check to, pictures of Catherine. Anyway, all I'm saying is what goes around comes around, and I'm so grateful to this commission for all the hard work that y'all are putting in. And to the City Council also for all the hard work. because we did it as a joint community effort. Going forward, let's keep that in mind and know that this park is too valuable to be just given away to the highest bidder to come in and manage it. I think we really need to think through that. And I want to give Teresa Brawley a chance to tell you all something about what she did when she was way back when. This is too heavy for you.
What year did that start?
This year started in '92, just before we bought the park.
Well, as Shante said, I couldn't remember when I even started that book. I've lived here since 1964. We had no park. We had one beat-up swing and a slide that had splinters in it. So I've seen a whole lot of development on the park. I spent 6 years on the park commission, but you got 2 for 1 because it made my husband come with me. And I use the word gravel, but that's not gravel, that you put back in the playscape where the kids are at. And up there, when they built the wall, we were up there with some of our mayors, council members, putting, again, rock or whatever that stuff is back behind it. And at that time, I believe Tom at one time was our mayor, and we were charging people to come back here and use the park. And he said, wait a minute, that's a public park. You can't do that. So, and word spread, and I wish that Westlake Hills had put in area for a park, because that's where half the people come from. When I was there, some of them were coming from Austin because it's not near a street and it's nice and safe. So again, I started the book. I don't know what all Shante has in there, but everything, and I think it should continue. Every scrap of news that comes to the Picayune or the American Statesman related to the park needs to go back in that book, or somebody continue that book, because it's a lot of information. Again, I've been here all these years, and I've seen it really develop. The upper park and the lower park, the barbecue, what the police did, and this is related to the park, teaching the kids how to ride a bicycle, tricycle, or whatever they have. So anyway, I just hope it continues. Thank you, Sean.
Sure, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Marina Breland.
Good morning, Marina Breland, 2808 Rollingwood Drive. I was at the city council meeting last night with Sandra and Colleen, and I thought an interesting point was brought up last night that needs to be shared with you guys if y'all haven't heard it yet. And I think this feeds into several things that are going on right now, but particularly the debate or consideration of the a new multi-use field. Former Mayor Tom Farrell brought up the question that, do we need to bring in the health department to see if there are any regulations or ordinances of having a field that has youth athletics, organized youth athletics, and off-leash dogs, that this could be a health concern. And this may, now that this has been brought up as far as the liability for the city, I think we need to proceed and something needs to be addressed. Have the health department come in and give us a ruling. And maybe this needs to be priority and done first, because this may dictate what can be done and what can't be done in the future. So before we spend any more time or money considering a new multi-use field, I think this needs to be brought to your attention and probably action taken. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to talk? Do we have other people in the audience? No comments? Okay, we'll move on. We're now into the public hearing to discuss a process for requests for proposals for the operation, maintenance, and ground lease of the City of Rollingwood athletic facilities. hearing, we have Amber Lewis.
So it was brought to my attention that there might be some confusion as to what's going on with the whole RFP process. And I guess being in the middle of it, I didn't realize maybe there was some misunderstanding. So right now, we're having a public hearing on the process. So the RFP is part of the process, but also, would you want to determine where the RFP is advertised? Do you also want to determine that there be a few public hearings on the RFP document? This is just basically what we're in the middle of right now is a process to determine the process. Does that make sense? We have walked ourselves all the way back to say, okay, we really want to take a look at this RFP document. Maybe we want to add some more to it, make edits to it, but then also, do we want to just get it out in the public more? So this is a public hearing to hear feedback from the community. What do you want in the RFP? What do you want to see as part of the process? Do you want it published in the Westlake Picayune? Do you want it in the New York Times? Where do you want it? And we could take all of that feedback, put it into the process, and then that would go to council for adoption of the process. Then once we have the process together, we can start working on the RFP document. We can work on the timelines and things like that.
And I think it's important to note that this is the second of 3 hearings.
This is
on
the third of
Actually,
3.
This is the third?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is the third of 3. So the council wanted to make sure we really made an effort to get feedback on the process, just the process. So we're really slowing things down.
Right, so
Yeah.
I guess what is it, your first question is, what do we think, where should it be published? Is that what you're asking?
Well, you can say that, you can give that feedback, but this is just a public hearing to do that.
All right.
Yes, if you're fine with the way it was done, you could note that.
Can I reflect on some feedback I got last night at the meeting? We had some folks who were, again, here this morning, who suggested that maybe we make some better use of the public space near the new dog fountain where a lot of people enter the park. I know we have that bulletin board down here at the lower park, but there's quite a few people who really exclusively use the upper park and would really have no reason to come down to the, kid playground if they don't have like little kids or if they're not in the playground area. So one suggestion from the folks that attended last night was perhaps we have a similar sort of bulletin board area that's kept updated. Another request was possibly having information about when games were scheduled on the fields.
We do have a bulletin board that's in this upper park.
Is
It's
it
at-
there?
It's in the entrance, it's not by the dog park, but it's at the entrance of the fitness equipment.
And that's what she's
Okay.
saying, that maybe
No,
we
she was
should.
talking about this one.
Oh, I thought you were
Oh,
talking
that
about
we need
that.
another one up there. Basically, we
By
have
the
2
dog
at the upper
fountain.
park. We have one
By the dog
on the
fountain.
field house.
Mhm.
We have a place on the field house, and we have one at the entrance on this side with the parking lot. So maybe adding something over there in terms of helping get information out. But I'm not sure if that relates to the RFP. I think what we can do is we can say, let's post all that information in those different spots
As well.
as well. And then in terms of the games, they are giving us, like, we just got the schedules for the games, and so we can technically post that. The problem is they change constantly. If there's weather, if there's a cancellation, if they shift a practice, so we can definitely post that. I wonder if there has to, I guess this might be a suggestion in our RFP for language. I'm not sure how you would say this, but language regarding, saying it's not just the posted schedule, that during ball season, all ball teams have first right to fields 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know, if it's a dad and his kid that are up there throwing the ball, that's different than an organized practice of a team. So maybe that needs to be addressed in the RFP, I don't really know, or just really amongst residents, kind of at some point we do a park FYI, here's how this is working, I don't know. But we can certainly post, we can certainly
that
post it all.
With subject to
And
change.
subject to change due to weather or unforeseen
Yeah, or
circumstances.
additional practices.
So-
We could provide the websites as well for the sports organizations.
But they don't
for
always
some
post
of
their stuff, and it's
Okay.
not always public is the problem. And I would ask,
How do they get the word out to the people to show up for the practice?
they send out an email, but I would assume and their coaches, you know, they assign times, okay, you're doing practice over here at this field. You know, one thing we've talked about, we're kind of keeping a running list right now of just ideas as we're investigating the issues up at the park for things to go within the contract. And one is to say, you know, all practices start off on fields 1 and fields 2. You know, girls softball uses field 2, boys baseball uses field 1. So if softball and baseball are there at the same time and there are additional teams practicing, like the other night I was up there on a Tuesday night and you had the entire backfield being used by the little tiny tots out there doing their baseball. So we can say, hey, try and schedule on these 2 fields first for practice and games, but it shifts around because they change stuff up. I would, one thing that was mentioned to me when talking to girls softball and to the Little League is they don't want to, they're not going to post like these teams are practicing at this time on this field. That is, you know, I guess they can say we're using these fields at these times, but there were some questions about, you know, who's looking at those. Is it just Rolling Wood residents? Is it, you know, Peeping Toms? Who is it that's watching that? So they have to be careful with their information that they put out too. So we have to be respectful of that. We can request information, but, you know, if all of a sudden it's, hey, lots of little, you know, 5-year-old boys are running around, and then it's just, there can be some problems with too much information out there, if that makes sense. Sorry, I don't know how to say that politely. So.
I guess I did have a question, Amber, on the RFP. Will the park commission see the RFP
Yes,
before it's posted or after it's posted?
absolutely. Just,
Uh-huh.
we can have you approve it, and we did the first time around. You approve the
Right.
document and then send it on to council for approval.
I will
Yes.
say this, I think the old RFP being posted right now is very misleading.
It's not
I mean, because of the dates and everything, it's just
Sure.
so, I don't know if that's
And it's
something that needs to be on there.
On
right
where?
now, On the website.
On the website?
Yeah.
We can take it down. Yeah.
I would think that.
Sure.
Came down
Sure.
to
I think a
me.
lot of people wanted access to it,
Right.
and rather than me emailing it or Ashley emailing it out to a lot of people.
Or maybe put invalid, or put something where they realize this isn't the actual
This isn't the
RFP.
one that's actually
Oh,
going
okay.
out.
You know,
Sure.
just maybe
Yes.
put like a draft, you know, a big red draft
Drafts
sign over it.
would be
so that
perfect, 'cause maybe
they
you
know
do
it's a
wanna
work in progress.
Yeah, maybe you do want to start with that RFP and then just add to or delete or
So
wherever.
are you wanting us to like add how we've been discussing where, you know, where we're watching things and we're saying, okay, we'd rather have the city's mowing company do the mowing. They can they can either contract directly with Cleanscapes.
Yes, that language needs to be in there.
Okay, so do you want us to come up with that list to
Yes.
give for the RFP where we're saying we want the janitorial service company used by our company? They can either
Yes.
choose to pay
It
them
needs
directly.
to be specific.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right.
And
And
that-
the language needs to be specific
Yes.
in the
Okay.
RFP.
And then
Alright.
that language is what you all take action on providing a recommendation to the council. Like,
Okay.
this is kind of the language we want to see in the RFP. council would consider it, we'd get more feedback at council. Hopefully I'll have someone help me draft from Park Commission, we can draft it together, and then it would come back before Park Commission. Y'all could mark it up and then eventually send it on to council for ultimate approval.
Right.
Does
Yeah,
that
we
sound
have a
good?
running list just based on,
Great.
you know, meeting with the fence company and
Okay.
realizing, hey, we need to have, you know, $1,000 buffer in there every year where they say, you know, maintenance and repairs, and that, they're gonna come out twice a year and look at the fence and tie things up, and it might be $600 one year, it might be $1,500 one year, but they're responsible for 1,000 or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we can do that.
Okay, well, that's
That'd
a
be
lot
perfect.
clearer.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, good.
Yeah,
Yes, we will change that on the website.
okay. So I think we'll move on to the next, item 4. We ready?
Wait, hold
I
on.
was
Oh,
saying-
you wanted to say something, sorry.
Shanti Jaykumar, 3309 Park Hills Drive. I had also signed up on the sheet for.
Oh, sorry.
It doesn't matter. I think Amber explained it to the extent, if I'm right, my takeaway from what you said is that the council and the administration, I guess, is ready to go back to square one. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to say something. Does it have to be a formal RFP, or can whatever the park commission comes up with, which for decades that's who has been running the or managing the park as well as the Little League, what do you call it, the agreement with the Little League ever since that was signed, 25, 28 years ago. So every year or whenever the lease came up, the park commission would do it. And this time in April was the first time I've seen a park commission approved by the RFP approved by the park commission. So I was confused as to where that RFP request or process for an RFP came from, whether it was originated from the park commission or by the city. So I was very confused. I am for RFPs, okay, because it puts out the information out there. And I think as a city with less than 7,000 population, and for any item that costs over $10,000, I don't know. There's legal limits for, I knew it at one time, but I don't anymore. You have to put out an RFP regardless. That's a legal requirement. And so I wasn't sure for the management of the park when it was $100,000 whether it should have been a publicly notified RFP. So those were my concerns when the RFP came out. My recommendation, from whatever I know from my research, I really want this group to be the movers and shakers to recommend, because in my mind, between Catherine and Laurie and Sandra, they probably know how many links are in 1 square foot of fencing. I mean, that's how much work has gone in, and where the sprinklers are, how far apart they are. I mean, I could go on, but she has all the information. So my feeling is, if the RFP process can be an RFP that comes out of this body, I can't imagine anything better for the community and for the city. Like Lincoln, I think, said, when you have public sentiment behind you, that's wind in your sails. I'm talking to the council member here. Really, public sentiment is what it's all about, and these guys represent the community far better than anybody else can. So that's my 2 cents worth, or $2, whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just the workhorse here. You know, I will help you draft whatever you want the RFP to look like. I think Maria and I worked on it together last time and then brought it to the Park Commission. So it's definitely not my document at all. I want to be very clear, and I'm happy to let y'all just run with it and draft it. I'll just support you however you need me to do that.
I have a
Can
question.
we talk about the ordinance? And
Oh,
answer
sure.
to the question?
Sure. Do you,
I have a question. Shanti, were you asking, did the RFP originate from council or from park commission? Was that part of your question?
She's
No,
asking
my
if
unders-
we need an RFP
Yeah, I'm
based
asking, do we
on
need
state
one?
law.
And where did the request for one originate? From council or
I
park
have,
commission? Was that
I
the
have
question?
no idea. It was
No, I'm
done
not
in
asking
April.
you.
Her question is, do we have to
Have an
an
RFP.
And that's what Amber's about to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. There is an ordinance that states that every 5 years, the council will review current contract holders, because no matter what, a contract is valuable, 5,000. With the park facilities in particular, it could be very valuable, right? And so it's important that, not only important, but lawful, that we go through an open and free publicly bid RFP process, which is what we have done. Now, their existing or former leaseholders are, welcome to propose to that, but it's also best management practices, because as a commission, you define what the scope of work is and what your expectations are in that RFP, and so that way the responses they understand, are we gonna be mowing the lawns or the fields? No, we're not, so we can cut that out of our bid. So it's, everybody has a good understanding of what everybody's role
Right.
in the potential relationship is.
Right.
Sorry to interject, but what does the ordinance specify as far as putting the RFP out there publicly? What are the requirements, minimum requirements?
There are no minimum requirements.
So we don't have to, we can do this, but it doesn't even have to be posted.
No, well, I don't think it says in the ordinance, but you'd have to you'd have to put it on the
But it
website.
doesn't
at
say
the
like,
minimum.
it needs to be in 3 different public places,
Right.
or 5, or 2.
Right.
There's no
Okay.
rhyme
I
or
think
reason.
there was some question.
There are rules in the Texas code that guide this, and it falls in, like, I went and looked it up just out of making sure we did the right thing. And for the park facilities, it is held to a different standard than perhaps if we were doing a public works process that's over 50,000.
Right.
So, when we advertised it locally, we could have advertised it in the Picayune also, but.
And it
didn't.
was,
But you don't
Yeah.
have
We
to.
follow the process, you don't have to.
and it was sent to the Little League and the girls softball, the former leaseholders. I sent it directly to them, so I didn't anticipate getting a response from other providers, but that's what we ended up with, so. Any other questions for me about the process, or?
No, I think now that we've had these 3 public hearings, we're ready to actually look at the draft of
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah,
So I guess we'll kind of meet and call you and figure
Yes,
out the best way
absolutely.
to do that.
And the goal to have that to you would be,
well, that's a good question. So, knowing that the current agreement is only through the end of the calendar year, we just may need to do another 6 months, so that way Little League and girls softball know that they have their spring, while we take the time necessary to get the RFP process, RFP document, everything we want in place, and that there's enough time for you all to get that all together.
so is that something we would need to make a motion to extend the lease, or how does that process happen? Should we agree to?
We can put an
That we
agenda
can get
item on
through
your
the-
regular meeting that you would make a recommendation to extend the current agreement, and we could have council act on that at the council meeting.
And what is the standard time frame once you issue the RFP to allow for responses?
Usually about a month, but that's up to you all,
So-
whatever you think.
Our goal to get the RFP published is what?
I guess that depends. If you,
Because if we published it, let's say at the beginning of November, we get everything by December, we could have a new lease in place before the end of the year.
you could, yeah, that would be the time.
Well, if there's any back and forth, it may take a little
Yeah.
time. I mean, I think our goal would be maybe, and then we need to remember that Park Commission's not gonna be meeting in the summertime, so May's gonna be our last meeting, so maybe we could have a goal of having it completed by March or something like that, like have it, say,
Or have like all your
February.
contract negotiations, maybe have a proposal by January 1, but then you have your contract negotiations completed in March. That's kind of a,
Yeah, but
a
maybe
good
going ahead
goal.
and re-up their lease until May to provide some consistency, but that then the new one would start at the end of that term, I guess. I don't know, I just, having watched the Little League, they're all volunteers, and so, as we are, and the going of back and forth, it sometimes is very quick and sometimes incredibly slow. So.
Okay. So if there's no one else that wants to speak, we'll move on to item 4, discussion regarding park operations and maintenance to include fencing, signage, irrigation, grass, fields, field house, dugouts, and shade structures.
Okay. Fencing, number 1. To close off fields 1 and 2, we got a bid from Viking. We've not yet gotten the bid from Discount. He's supposed to be getting that to us, but I would assume it's probably going to be pretty similar, but it's to furnish and install 2 black double drive gates for field 1, install the double gates with 10-foot opening, field 2, install double gate with 14-foot opening, remove and dispose of existing fence if applies, materials black 10x4, black 14x4, and the price is $2,160 for the gates and installation. And the reason needing to close off fields 1 and 2 is so that we can keep pets off of those fields, because right now we have the 2 big openings and it's, you know, free for all. And so Amber, on this, is this the one we have to take to RCDC to ask for the money for this improvement? Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe I should shed a little light on RCDC. They have restrictions as far as what kind of projects and what kind of support they can provide. So they are restricted to project-centered projects versus like ongoing operations and maintenance. So that's something that might be misappropriate to ask the city council for.
So do we use our budget and then we just have to go back to RCDC and say we need to increase our budget?
Well, that's another thing. So the operations and maintenance, their funding is restricted to funding of the park to just projects, not operations and maintenance. And I know that's how it's been done in the past with the city attorney. We tried to get that meeting together with the 2 RCDC and then the 2 co-chairs of the park commission with the city attorney, so we could share all of this information with you. But so like last night when the council adopted the budget, the idea was that the general fund is now providing operation and support to the park, and then any projects like if you wanted the dog park expansion project or something like that, or trail expansion or whatever, would go to RCDC.
So is this not, I mean, to me, this is a project because it is part of our infrastructure. So if you're looking at the dog park, that is an infrastructure project because you are doing that. But I mean, we need to fix our infrastructure because
Right.
our infrastructure up there is kind of, our fence is a mess.
Right.
And then it's, the reason needing to close it off on fields 1 and 2 is that we have a lease and pets aren't allowed on those 2 fields. So it's
our responsibility.
It's our responsibility.
To make
So
sure
I'm-
the
I'm-
obligations are met.
I think we could just take it out of the park budget.
okay.
Going forward, maintenance, if it's a big infrastructure, say it's a brand new fence or a brand new, like the wall project or a brand new playscape, that should go to RCDC.
Okay.
Those kind of projects, and then they publish their projects. It has to be published for 60 days. So there's quite a bit of additional effort that RCDC has to do that we're just learning about. But they very much still want to support the park, but just they want your big capital projects, not the small repairs.
Right. I'm a little concerned though that, because now that you're saying we're shifting our funding, our maintenance and operations funding to city budget, where the other night he told us that they were $34,000 in the red.
Right.
Our existing infrastructure, we're realizing that we haven't been maintaining well, and we have not been keeping up with the cost of the maintenance of a lot of this stuff. So it seems a little backwards to say, okay, they can fund all these improvement projects, but we're not gonna be able to afford them. I mean, you know, if you build it, you have to be able to own it, maintain it, operate it, and improve it as needed. And
Why would we start adding to that if
Yeah,
we can't afford what we already have?
Yeah.
Right, so I think there's some money earmarked in the budget, and that doesn't mean, what I mean by earmark is that we're not necessarily sure we're going to spend that, probably not going to spend that much money. So I say that because there's some flexibility to fund. Council understands that we have not been maintaining the park to the level that we need to. And so there's some flexibility with those funds to provide some additional support, and we'll just work through the process.
So I guess
how
we're back to the
much?
question, do we ask council for this money, or should we take it from our park budget and then ask for it later?
ask for more money later, because we have to shut off the fields.
Yes.
That's a non-issue, and I think we would look really silly walking out to residents and saying, hey, can I raise money to shut off our fields? Because
Right.
I don't think that's an appropriate use of fundraising effort. And I don't really think it's an appropriate thing to ask the Women's Club for either. I think it's something we need to do. But if we utilize the budget that
Yes.
was approved,
Do budget first, and
And
if
then we go for
if we go
overages.
over,
Okay.
we will take it to council for a budget amendment.
all right.
Okay.
On the gate, is it self-closing?
What do you mean self-closing?
None of the others are.
No, we'll be,
So what if somebody doesn't shut the gate when they leave and then the dogs are able to access the field?
well, that's part two of our plan.
Sorry.
Part two of our plan is what we have realized, we've put new park rules and signs up, but people walk past them. They're great, and it's good information out there, but after meeting with the police and really walking around and looking at it, at every gate, we now have a bid and we have some sign options, but we really need to have something on each field, like at the edge of each dugout entrance, because those always remain open, those are never closed. And then wherever we have an actual gate or an entry point, we will have a sign that says, simply like this, Hatley Field number 2, no pets allowed, thank you, with our nice Rolling Wood logo, or whatever wording we come up with. But we really have to have it right there, because the police have been out there, and people are like, oh, I didn't see the sign, because, we have our rule signs periodically. If we have these at our entry points, and they walk out there and somebody is on field 1 or 2, it's very obvious that they deliberately walked past it. Because the more wording you have on there, the less they're gonna read. If
That's
it is
right.
short and sweet and simple, and this is Hatley Field 1, no pets allowed, and then, in the back area, we may need to wait on our signs for 3, 4, and 5 that say Hatley Field, number 3, 4, and 5, pets allowed, please clean up your pet waste, thank you. I think people, once they see them, will start paying attention to them. But right now, I was up there the other day, and a car pulled up, and she was a professional dog walker, and 8 dogs got out of the car, and they immediately started running on field 2 and going at it. And I was up there, and I just happened to say, hey, we only allow dogs on these fields. We'll have some new signs posted pretty soon and some gates shutting this off. And she was very happy to just move to field 3, 4, and 5, but she didn't know that was the rule, and she hadn't even driven far enough back in the park to even read the park rule sign. So what we're realizing is it's an access, and it's kind of like has to be spelled out right there. Otherwise, it's kind of like when it says no jumping or diving. It has to be right there, not at the entrance of the pool, but right there. So yes. So they're self-closed. Like we will be, they'll be like the other gates that are up there. but on the gate, we will have a sign that says that. So if they're opening it and going on there, then you know they've.
Can I make a suggestion?
Mhm.
If we're gonna say no pets allowed, field 1, no pets allowed, instead of thank you, could we just say please use fields 3, 4, 5?
Yeah,
So that
that'd
they're
be
at
great.
least directed?
These are just ideas. That's what we want to go over
Yeah.
next.
Okay.
Once we approve the fence stuff or ordering fence, let's go over wording and figure out what we want them to say and go from there. Because the faster we can get this up, I think some of these problems will go away that we're having up there. Anyway, so I guess on the let's go with the fence real fast. How do we approve the fence? This is our.
You
We
have
need
an
a motion.
item,
Can we
number
approve it
5.
without our other bid then? What do we approve?
She
I think
tried
on
to get
5.
other
We've
bids.
tried, as long as we've tried to get bids. The problem is people, I mean, what I'm finding is the smaller jobs,
Yeah, don't.
they're just really busy. I mean, trying to get a painter to come out to look at the field house to replace the rotting wood is like, I mean, you know, we're on lists, but they've yet to show up, so.
I make a motion that we accept the bid
For Viking,
from Viking.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so next on the list is irrigation.
You know what, let's do signage real fast so we can approve.
Oh, you wanna approve the
Picking,
signs?
well, or figuring out
See,
what we
that's
want the
kind of
signs
been,
to say.
actually, that's in 5 to discuss and action
it's
on
in
the
5?
selection of a
Yes.
bid to
Oh,
form
okay.
of fencing and
Oh, on the
irrigation
signs.
and new signage. So
Oh.
that's, we should really wait.
Wait,
So let's
okay.
just,
So
I guess, have our discussion of
irrigation.
irrigation.
Irrigation, we met the other day with Cleanscapes and they are going to work on every month now doing an irrigation check. They did a full irrigation check of all 3 of our systems. We have a system down at the lower part that's housed out of Public Works, and then we have 2 systems at the upper field in the field house, one that does the ball fields and one that does all the surrounding areas. And so we have some broken issues across the board. The ones on the field, because we're still under contract with the Little League, we have emailed with the Little League and Steve Frank and connected them so that Cleanscapes can fix what's on the fields via them. And then we are getting bids on fixing some of our stuff, and then some of it they are already starting to fix, where we don't have heads, nozzles, drip lines, rotors, small lateral lines. Hopefully all of this, once it gets working again, will help green up our areas. But our front, remember Amber, the drip lines along Nixon, or Gentry are completely shot. And so those have to be redone. And we don't do rotors there because the spray will just wind up in the street. So some of it is just, the irrigation, and was put in years ago. And then some of it's just general maintenance and figuring it out. And then there were a couple of zones that they couldn't find functioning, and they're gonna have to come back out and figure out where the wiring is for that. So we have a couple dead zones that may look dead for a while. We'll get them, we'll find them eventually, but they may still be brown for a little bit until they figure out where the wires are and what's not working.
Is there any chance that this can be done before It's My Park Day?
Yes, we talked to them about
Okay,
at least
good.
trying to get the irrigation fixed before then, getting it done this month. And so that's just gonna be Amber and I kinda making sure that it happens. And then they know, we talked to them about It's My Park Day, that we wanted that done. And that in the beds where the black is sticking up, get that fixed before we put mulch down. So.
Good.
So we're working on it, but we're gonna have to keep after them a little bit just to make sure it happens quickly. So,
Well, I think the next issue is grass, so that kind of ties in with this.
it does. They'll have to probably resod along Gentry when they do the drip lines, because they're gonna have to dig it up and bury them, so they'll have to do do that there, but they said to wait until the spring for the front of the park, because we talked about aeration and adding some dirt and things like that, and they said we could do it now, but it really would be overkill, and we could wait and do it in the spring. So that's what they recommended for that. But just getting it watering again, and with the temperature change and stuff like that, and just some basic maintenance, we should start looking a lot better. And now that the sprinklers are on, because they were off all summer, we're starting to get some green coming back. A lot of weeds, but green. So.
Okay, and the fields,
Okay. The fields in the back, yes. The Little League they're working on their fields. Their field guy is supposed to be developing their plan for improvement.
Is that their capital improvement? Like,
No,
what do
just
you
for
mean?
their basic, like getting their fields back in working order. He said it wasn't necessarily their capital improvement, because they're looking at the shade structure on the softball.
Well, it'd be great to know what they're already planning to do.
Right. I think they're in limbo right now because we're in limbo.
Right.
So maybe we just say right now the goal is to get the fields up. I will say we're going to have to invest some money in fields 3, 4, and 5 ourselves if we are allowing dogs back there and pets back there, because fields 1 and 2 without the pets and it's just the kids, they have a much easier time keeping them up. And from a maintenance perspective, Cleanscape said this, and the Little League has said this, that it's taking longer for the grass in certain areas to get up and going in the back, because the pets, they run and dig up and that, and which is fine. We just are going to have to give it a little more love, and we may actually have to make some of that investment, because as one of the Little League guys said, he goes, we can put money into it, but if the dogs are constantly ripping it up, we'd like a little bit of help with that. And I think that's a fair compromise.
That's kind of interesting, because never, ever have and I walk that park 5 days a week. I've never seen a dog ripping anything up. I see them running.
Right.
I see a lot of dogs, but I've never seen a dog digging there.
That's what it is. It's the running and the
Okay, that I see.
because right now the grass is not, we don't have a good turf in there, and right now we have a lot of dirt and we have a lot of dead stuff up on that backfield, and for the turf to take hold, they're gonna have a lot of aeration and a lot of adding of dirt and stuff, and so that was what they were telling us.
Okay, I can understand the wear from the dogs. I just
Yeah.
don't see any ripping up by the dogs. Okay.
okay, field house.
Field house, Alex is going to pressure wash it, because the city has a pressure wash. We're just gonna pick a week, because on that back side, it's a mess. The maintenance inside seems okay right now. But the exterior, the front board that faces the ball fields, we've got a bunch of rot, and so, as I said, I've got companies that say they're gonna come out and give us a bid on fixing the rotted wood, possibly instead of with wood using hardy plank on that fascia board.
Oh,
And
that would be great.
that would, weather a lot better. Because it's a small job, we have a lot of rust on the posts and stuff, so they would need to repaint the fascia board, and what we said was, bid it out with fixing it, and bidding it out with just giving it a new coat of paint, because it has been 10, 12 years. And so, and then we're gonna ask them to look at the dugouts, because we're having the same problem with the paint and the stuff in the dugouts. We've got a lot of rust and that kind of stuff. So if it's better to have them do it all at once when they're here versus having to come back every time, and and sometimes it's a little bit bigger job gets them here, unfortunately. Because right now, if it's a small job, it's truly
Do we
it's
have a
hard.
builder in Rollingwood that
Yes.
I could call to do something, or to, that might,
I've called too.
oh, you have that live here? Yeah. Okay.
We could ask Josh McKay. He's really great at rounding up contractors for the
Okay.
city.
Do we have anything with workers' comp or things that we have to pay attention to? bonded and that sort of thing,
I
or?
don't think they would have to be bonded for that project, cause it's
Okay.
probably not large enough
Okay.
to,
I just
but
wanted to-
definitely workers' comp.
Definitely workers' comp, okay. Cause I know some of the smaller painters and stuff may not have that.
Right.
Those guys seem to be a little bit more readily available, but I'm pretty certain a lot of them don't have workers' comp, so we'll have to maybe find a larger crew that would. But yes, if anybody has names,
Do you wanna
I sent you a
contact
bunch of
Josh or
emails.
us?
I did, I've called him.
You already called
Oh,
Josh?
yeah, no, I haven't called Josh, but Lori gave me some handyman names, so I've called them,
Okay.
and they're gonna come out and look, it's just a matter of when they get out. to look.
Maybe we just start driving by all the houses under construction and saying, would you mind taking a Send your look?
Field house,
What do
no,
you
right?
think? What's
That might be our best bet.
Got a
That
taco
might-
in it for you,
Yeah.
and
Give you a pet favor in return. No, but it's, believe me, I'm making calls. They're gonna be so tired of Catherine Horn and her phone number pretty soon, so. Or they're gonna all call me back on the same day. That'll be it.
That'd be great. Dugouts,
Just the same.
Same.
Dugouts that, we do have one dugout and we have a drainage issue. The one that is, on field 2, on the girls softball field, if you're on the porch of the field house and you look straight at it, it's the dugout that's closest to you. When it rains, it just floods all in there on that side. And so I'm not sure how we address that, but that is probably more of an infrastructure issue than a capital improvement issue by the Little League, but I know that that is definitely a problem. So, I don't know if
French drain.
French drain, or I'm not even sure, and I don't know if it's maybe because of the hill, you know, when it's sloping down, I don't know, but that one, when there's a hard rain, it floods pretty bad, so.
and shade structures.
Shade structures, if, I don't, that may be something we wanna talk about in November when we talk about fundraising or.
and also
capital
to see what the
improvements.
Little League's thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I know
We
that,
don't wanna duplicate effort.
right, if they wanna put some up, you know, when we were over there the other day, I know around where the dog, watering station is, majority of the day it's pretty hot out there, and so, you know, I know dog owners kinda go there, but I guess we need to wait until we figure out the health department stuff, but something in that area might be nice, a shade structure, over on that side, but I guess also, is that area gonna be covered in the bond? Will there be improvements or the parking fixed? I mean, we don't wanna build anything that's gonna have to be taken down if there's
Right.
any major improvement with that, so.
Real quick, I have a question. Who's gonna be talking to someone about the health department?
We need to
Because,
assign someone to that.
because whoever does that, you might also wanna let them know that there's a lot of wild animals that are on those fields. There's so much deer poop out there. So, I mean, I see most of the dog owners, again, my dogs don't use those fields because I'm all over the neighborhood. But I see the dog owners picking that up. There's always gonna be someone who doesn't. But one time when my dog was on the field and I went out there to pick it up, I looked around and I saw
Deer.
there was feces everywhere. I started to pick it up just thinking, oh, what dog owners would leave it. And then I realized it was all deer poop everywhere. So that, if you're gonna talk to the health department, ask them, is that a problem? We have a lot of
And like for
foxes,
years.
deer,
Yeah.
and they're
Well,
gonna jump
I
the
think
fences.
one of the things we've come up with is that we probably are gonna have to hire someone
Right.
to regularly go out there and pick all that up.
The deer poop?
Yeah.
Let's see
And
first what
hopefully-
the health department says. I mean, out in the country, do they have that issue?
Well, and it's been like that for years.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a new thing, and that we're not
And
all
hopefully
gonna.
shutting off fields 1 and 2.
Right.
I don't think as many
I
deer are
feel
gonna go
like-
through the dugout to get on those fields.
Well-
But right now, they've got a big wide space, and I think that's why there's a lot of deer stuff up there, and there's none on 3, 4, and 5, because it's completely closed right now.
Well, I've seen them jump the fences though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
You can easily.
Yeah,
jump.
I
they
mean,
are
that's
fence
just-
jumpers.
I think that's just, I mean, I don't know, I guess whoever,
do it.
What are they doing?
I'll do it.
You know, but if we have to look into that, you know,
Is it possible for one of you to remind me the gentleman that talked about immunity, the lawyer that was there last night?
Do what?
The lawyer that was there
Yeah,
last
Kevin.
night?
I have his contact.
Okay, that might be helpful for, if she's gonna take this on, for her to maybe chit chat with him about
I
that.
think it'd be good to chat. He's I don't know, personal liability or whatever, but basically when there are lawsuits because of personal injury attorney and stuff like that, so he's very aware of liability issues and injury issues and all that sort of thing. So I think he would be good, but I think the health department thing is a separate.
Yeah,
It is,
first
but-
I just wanna find out from the health department,
Sure.
is this our issue?
yeah.
I mean, I think there's parks everywhere that has wild animals, and
Yeah,
I find it hard to
This
believe
is
that
not
we could be
unique
liable.
to us by
No.
any means,
Yeah.
and I can't imagine they're gonna be like, shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
know.
let's start there, if that's okay with you guys,
Yeah,
and I'll
I'm-
report back to you what the health department says.
Yeah, I mean, because what was it that was exactly brought up? Like cohabitation on the fields or just
And who brought that up?
Use
Tom did?
use and,
Oh.
of the field with organized youth activities and dogs.
and dogs? Okay.
Oh,
Is there a health risk or liability for the city?
so none of the parents brought it
Maybe it's not
up.
a problem at all, but now that it has officially been brought up, the
We've got to
city
look
needs
at
to
it.
investigate it.
Okay, I'll call the health department.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to 5 then. Discussion and possible action on the selection of a bid to perform maintenance and repairs of fencing, which we've done, irrigation system, and new signage. So, do
Okay.
you want to make a motion for the irrigation system? Or how do you want to do this?
Amber,
Yes.
the other day when we were doing the, shoot, where is it? Do we need to do a motion on that one, or was that part
No,
of our,
that was-
okay, that's
that
part,
was
so we don't,
within the budget.
that was within the budget, we don't
Yes.
have to do that. We do need to do it on the fence.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we, ask Viking Fence to go ahead and, furnish the 2 new gates to close off fields 1 and 2.
At a cost of,
$21.60.
I'll second that.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, this is one where we, the shade structure, yes. This is from Western Hills Little League, and this is what they have at Wea.
Wait a minute, that's on the next one, that's
Oh,
on
that's on
6.
oh, that's
We
on
still
6.
haven't
Okay,
finished
okay.
5.
Okay,
Here
let's do
is
this
the
new signage. All right, so we have to decide what we want our signs to say. And maybe we just do fields 1 and 2 for now to close those off, until we figure out the issue on field 3. And these were just samples and literally all I mean, these simple ideas. I mean, we can change the wording, but using our Rolling Wood logo and just saying, you know, Hatley Field number 1, no pets allowed, thank you. And then having it, we'll put 1 at each dugout entrance on each gate. We can do this size, you know, just this size, or the next size up is 12 by 18, which seems a little
I
large.
think that's a little excessive.
But
Well, since it doesn't have a lot of wording on it,
Yeah.
I think that size is fine.
Okay, I had to look, cause I'm like, okay, what does that actually look like? So it looks a little big to me. So we can get that, and it will actually be cheaper, cause she just gave me the bid on 12 by 18 and 18 by 24. But to do 18 signs and 12 by 18, it was $342, so it was $19 a sign, so it's not a huge expense, and it fits within our budget. But I think we should come up with our, what do we agree on wording? We need to have.
Well, do we
Simple.
want to put on there, dogs may use 3, 4, fields 3, 4, and 5? Do we
Well,
want
Are
to
we
say that
really
or
gonna
not?
give them that many
No.
fields?
I wouldn't put it on there. What I am finding is that,
It's on the rules poster, it's on the
Yeah.
Yeah, I
rules
think we just
already,
leave it short and
Yeah.
sweet.
but
I-
there's a lot of words on that rules.
there's a lot of words in the rules.
Sign.
I think simple, just on fields 1 and 2, no pets allowed, where it's, you know, I mean, we could say no dogs allowed, but as soon as we do that, somebody's gonna come in with a random animal. So I think a simple no pets
No, I think no
allowed,
pets is good.
and then thank
Yeah.
you, and then let's wait and on the signs for 3, 4, and 5. And
My only reservation with that, or my only thought on that, is that someone like the dog walker you know described, who's not as familiar with the park, fields 1 and 2 are the first fields that you get to, and you kind of have to walk
Right.
a little ways
Yeah.
back to get to 3, 4, and 5. And if you have the signage "No pets allowed," they might just think that no pets are allowed anywhere. So I'm just gonna
But it
go ahead and use
designates a
this,
field,
you know.
so it makes you think, well, there's more than 2 fields here, so I'll find the ones that are available.
Right.
That would be my thought process, but
I don't know how much you wanna advertise our fields
as,
as dog
Right.
areas. I think we have gotten that reputation. The amount of time I've spent up here recently, we are a destination zone beyond Rollingwood residents, which is fine, because that's how public parks are, but we are a destination zone now amongst the dog walking businesses. And some of them are very good about picking up pet waste, and others I have watched are not. And I'm not a pet owner, so when I go over there to pick up the pet waste, it's not, I don't know, I've watched it both ways recently, because I've just tried to spend a lot of time up there, and, I don't know, sometimes less is more maybe, but, I don't know.
So how many signs do you need 2 per
No.
field, or how many
No,
per
there'll be
field?
more at each, okay, so on field 1, you have the 2 dugouts, and so you'll need 1 at each dugout entrance, because that's where people will walk in.
Mhm.
We have 2 gates on field 1, so they'll only be on the 2 gates, and then at the back of the field, they have the openings, those little tiny little openings, and we have to keep those open. We looked at, could we close them off, but we have to keep them open in the event a ball goes over. That's how they get in and out really quickly, so there's 2 spots there. So I think on
Okay,
field
Field 1 would have
there's 6 signs, there would be 6. Maybe put 8, just so that I think we should order an extra 1 or 2, and that way we've got them, from our original printing. And then the same on field 2, because it's dugouts and gates. And so we just want it where it's nice and simple, and anybody that decides to walk past it with
We
their
have to
dog.
order, what do you think we have to order extra ones?
You don't wanna have an extra just if it breaks, cause it's cheaper in your quantities is what it
Yeah.
is. But we can see what it is.
Yeah.
But I think we
Either
just
way.
need our words, what do we want it to say?
Well, I think we stick then with the
Cause we
the way
could,
you have
we
it.
could say pets allowed on 3, 4, and 5, but is it, if we
well, why
do,
don't we vote?
if we do that, I don't have a dog, so I think that may,
I say let's vote.
okay. Alright, well, what do y'all think? We should,
Well, what's the motion?
oh,
Well,
We have to
I think we're voting to
We're just
see, do
trying
we
to see.
wanna advertise the 3, 4, and 5 for dogs,
Oh.
or for use by dogs, or do we want to leave it without?
and if we're having to check with the health department, then we've gotta wait on that.
I say, all right, well, those that wanna just leave it as it is, say aye. Or raise your hand, aye.
We'll just do something.
And those that wanna do it, add the other wording, but
So that's 2 of us, so y'all have it.
Yeah, I'm not, we're good.
I just get
I
concerned
think
that
it's
this
great.
size to add all those words, now you're going to be,
yeah, I think
You're gonna have to move to the larger size.
Add the words to it.
I guess my only reason I like the idea of telling them where to go, but the only reason I would say not to is more white space gives them a chance to read the sign. So,
Okay.
And then when we can put, once we figure out the health department on fields 3, 4, and 5 at those entrances, it will say pets
Pets
allowed,
that's what.
or pets welcome,
And they may see that just in walking around the park,
yeah.
if they're new.
And then, And don't we have, Karina, you said we had 2 more of those
There's-
signs?
I think there's just one that has not been posted.
Okay. Jackie Bum?
I think
There's
that was
3
good.
in corrugated pipe.
The corrugated that are going in the kiosk, but there's one there that still needs to be.
No, there's
There's one missing.
all the metal.
Oh, okay, 3, 4, 5,
There's
6,
one
7, 1.
missing, there's one location, there's some in the field. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
I think
just in
it's-
order for time, because I'm gonna have to leave pretty soon.
Okay, so
let's-
make a motion to order signs, small signs for fields 1 and 2, 6 signs per field, with this language.
6 to 8 signs.
6 to 8 signs, and we'll see what the discount is.
Okay.
And then we'll hold off on 3, 4, 5.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now let's go on to this last agenda item, and that's this shade screen that, Little League, let me read the actual discussion and possible action on a shade screen on the athletic field fence. And they actually just wanna do, as I read, the top
Yeah. they
part
won't have
of the
2
screen, they
them.
don't wanna have that bottom one. They feel that the glare from the sun is, that they would need that top one, but that the bottom one would maybe block the viewers, so that's why they're not saying that.
One,
they want that.
our backstop area isn't as tall. I went up there, we don't have, ours isn't as high as that, so.
So are they asking us for us to fund this? or
No, they're funding
they're
this.
funding
They're
it.
funding
They just
this.
wanna.
They need it approved by us, and then it goes to council for
Okay.
approval. Okay.
Okay, so, does anybody wanna talk about it?
I'll
Okay.
second the motion to approve.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I think we're ready to adjourn at 12:40.
11:40.
11.
I mean 11.
Minutes to spare.
43.
Minutes
11:43.
to spare.
Thank y'all.
Do you know which one I bought? I bought the one from
What's that?
Now I don't know.
Oh,
It's been so
I'll
long, I
second
don't
that
think-
motion.
okay.